Debilitating emotions include overwhelm, dissociation, worry, extreme stress, emotional overload that can make you feel like you just don't want to exist here anymore. It can create spirals down in depression, anxiety that turns into panic attack, and I could name so many other debilitating emotions. I don't know that we're going to be able to escape them. So many of us are recovering from traumatic events. Some of those events occurred during childhood, during formative years where our brain wasn't even grounded enough and solid enough to be able to make rational decisions and to know how to navigate out of really difficult, maybe even inappropriate situations. So we're not going to escape emotions. And obviously, there are a lot of beautiful, wonderful emotions. Why would we want to escape those? They make life meaningful, joy, hope, love, you know, expressions of joy and hope and love are a wonderful aspect of life. But right now, I'm talking about the difficult emotions, the ones that loss, sorrow, the ones that really can get us stuck. We're not going to escape them. They are part of the human experience. I think we've all realized that unless we, participate in numbing practices, which that never really works well because once we stop numbing, we still have to deal with the emotions. So it's probably in our best interest to figure out healthy ways to cope. When we experience debilitating emotions or really heavy, difficult to manage emotions, we don't want to numb. We do want to stay present. We want to be in full awareness of what we're experiencing, and yet we don't want to spiral down. So it's a very interesting dynamic to navigate emotions, difficult emotions, in a healthy way. We have to be strategic because we don't want to numb or check out or dissociate. We want to remain fully engaged, fully present. If I'm feeling lost, if I'm feeling depressed, if I'm feeling rejected, if I'm feeling sorrow, I want to be able to acknowledge it and say it and to some degree feel it so that I am remaining present and yet not spiral down and go down the drain, to the point of where I'm not able to pull myself out of the hole. So it's really interesting because we do need a way to avoid slipping down, going down the slippery slope of negative emotions, and yet we don't want to be in avoidance, right? So such an interesting dialectic when we are attempting to self-regulate. Dialectics have been proven to be very helpful. Dialectics are the synthesis of opposites. So it's like I want to avoid going down the slippery slope of negative emotions, and yet I want to be fully present and not actually in the energy of avoidance. There's really no positive outcome wallowing in negative emotions. So while we want to be fully present, aware, engaged in our healing process, we don't want to wallow or fixate on problems and, of course, distress or trauma. Fixating on old trauma can really activate the fight or flight response over and over and over again, releasing too much cortisol in the body, which then will result in higher or increased rates of anxiety, insomnia, and weight gain, and a host of other problems. So how do we avoid numbing, not over fixate, but remain present enough to self-regulate, pull ourselves out of the distress without causing more distress by thinking about how we're going to strategically get out of the hole. It's a lot, right? It really does seem to be a lot. However, the more we practice self-regulation, all of this becomes a lot easier. To simplify all of this complex information, we want to remain present. And we want to engage in activities, even thinking, thought processes that allow us to stay present and uh, maintain the ability to reason within the distress. So something distressful is occurring, there's something challenging to navigate, you feel the stress increasing in the psyche, maybe your heart rate is increasing, you're feeling the stress maybe in your body as physical pain. We want to actually notice and be aware that that's happening while at the same time maintain our ability to uh, reason and be strategic so that we can pull ourselves out of the hole. One of the ways we can do that is mindfulness. Of course, being the observer of what you're experiencing and not the victim of it. So, yes, to some degree, we're participating because it's happening, but we can observe that I'm in distress. I can observe that I'm feeling loss or sorrow, or I feel dejected or rejected, or I'm feeling sadness, or I'm feeling unhappy at the moment without being the victim of that. So, while remaining in my wise mind or reasoning mind or reason mind, I can allow myself to create strategy alongside those emotions I'm feeling. So I'm feeling the emotions on the one hand, but on the other hand, at the same time, I'm giving myself permission and space, and I'm encapsulating myself with love and compassion enough to be able to strategize to pull myself out of the hole in the very moment of distress. This is self-regulation. And this is why, even if you're having a panic attack, you can actually pull yourself out of panic in under 2 minutes. Sometimes a very, very few seconds, you can pull yourself out of panic if you can learn in the moment to be the observer and program the brain and tell the brain what to do, activate the brain's ability to reason in the middle of distress. If you can affirm yourself and speak life, and if you can tell yourself that you are going to get out of this, it will be very, very helpful. But a lot of the time we aren't skilled yet enough to activate and program the brain in the middle of distress. So there's other things you can do. Remaining fully present and counting to 10 while breathing, thinking about your favorite fruit or your favorite color, paying attention to what you're wearing, looking at everything. If you're wearing a baseball cap, if you're wearing a t-shirt, if you're wearing a belt, do you have jeans on? Do you have on white socks? Are they white socks with a black Nike logo on them? Are you wearing, what kind of shoes are you wearing? Tennis shoes? Are they leather? So really identifying as much as you can on your person. You can identify various physical attributes of yourself, as long as they don't cause judgment. So you can say, I have a size whatever foot, or I have painted toes. I'm wearing pink nail polish. I've got on, lip gloss, things like that. Okay, you can also look at your surroundings. I'm at a park. There are trees behind me. I see a squirrel. There's mountains in front of me. The sun is shining, or it's overcast today. I see 5 clouds. So this is being present, allowing yourself in the moment of distress to notice, where you are, what you're wearing, what you're looking like, how you're dressed, what your surroundings are looking like, what you feel. So you may feel sad and depressed, lonely and rejected, but what else do you feel? I feel a cool breeze on my skin. I feel the warmth of the sun on my face. I feel the grass underneath my feet, or I'm walking up a hill and I can feel gravel underneath my shoes. I hear birds chirping. I see the waves of the ocean as they come in towards the sand. Okay, these types of techniques allow you to remain present, and they are actually extremely self-regulating. So we're basically learning to sit on the shore of the water, and we're allowing ourselves to touch whatever we can while we're sitting on the shore. We're allowing ourselves to feel the water, okay? Whether it's an intense wave of water, whether the water feels like it's boiling hot, whether it's freezing cold, whether it feels like we're going to drown, we're allowing ourselves to notice that sensation while at the same time being fully present and giving ourselves permission to notice other things. It's in the noticing, it's in the being the observer rather than the victim of the emotions. It's the allowance of other emotion, energy, sensation, and thoughts to come in while you're feeling distress. That creates a lot of wonderful self-regulation. So it's very important to remain present, and this will cause emotional stabilization in the middle of distress if you can allow yourself to be present. A lot of the time we, make this choice in the moment of pain and distress to run away from our emotional experience. And the runaway tactic makes sense because it's an attempt to prevent re-traumatization, right? But by allowing ourselves to be present and de-escalate the emotions in a healthy way, such as, talking to yourself, breathing, counting to 10, reminding yourself that you're okay, paying attention to where you are, noticing other sensations such as the warmth of the sun on your face. Grounding in that way allows us to return blood flow to the thinking brain. And this is very, very helpful. Without some capacity to observe and reflect functions of prefrontal cortex, emotions cascade in reactions based on a threat system. Okay, so even though we're not aware of it, if we don't have some ability to observe and reflect in the moment of distress, if we are not able to be the observer, if we're only the victim of these debilitating emotions, then there's a cascade, and those reactions actually create fight or flight responses. They impact the nervous system in not a good way. The amygdala fires off, and we basically activate our threat system, our internal threat system. Okay, and this actually becomes problematic because then unintentionally we are reliving trauma. We begin to revisit, difficult situations where we didn't feel like we were able to navigate successfully. Part of self-regulation is activating parts of the brain and psyche and even heart space that know you got this and that you can move through difficult situations, that you can get through this. It's a lot. I realize that it's a lot, especially when you haven't had clinical training or you haven't been in therapy or you haven't been working with a practitioner. The reason I like to bring brain into the clinical work, the reason I like to explain the neuroscience, and the reason I like to bring in spirituality into my clinical sessions is because I feel like it's the amalgamation of all of those. The neuroscience, sometimes some of us need to understand what we're doing and why we're doing it. The clinical strategies that actually work, and then the spiritual energetic, the spirituality, your faith in something bigger than you, and the energy clearing. All of those together really can help us work through very, very challenging emotional experiences. It can prevent us from dissociating. It can help activate an ability to remain fully engaged and fully present and actually be a powerful observer that is able to guide our own self out of difficult emotions. And that is so empowering. It's so self-regulating to be your own guide. I notice when my clients who've had panic for years, such debilitating panic that they've had to go to the emergency room at times because they felt like they were going to die. When I teach them how to pull themselves out of panic in 5 minutes, then 2 minutes, and then a few seconds. They're blown away, not just by the fact that it's possible to minimize a panic attack without having to go to the emergency room, but the fact that they learned how to do it themselves, that they didn't need an outside party or an external resource or pill, or shot, or drink to alleviate what was going haywire inside. When they realize they can bring themselves down, they can talk themselves off the ledge, and they can cause their physical body to align with the brain, to sync up and work together, and they can gently pull themselves out of deep panic. It is so liberating. It's so encouraging. It's so inspiring to realize that we can manage our lives, we can self-regulate, and we can do it all on our own. So be well, dear friends. I hope that these clinical offerings are helpful as you exercise great courage in self-regulating and getting a grip on your own emotions, learning to stay fully present and feel the emotions, but not allowing them to debilitate you or ruin your life. We are fully capable of managing emotions, creating mental and emotional stabilization. We are fully capable of achieving strong, healthy distress tolerance and emotional regulation when we are given the tools and we exercise the courage to utilize those tools on a regular basis. So be well, my friends, until next time.